Hi, second grade. So you should have a pumpkin, and you should have your pattern practice sheet. We were working on this before in the afternoon online session. If you didn't get a chance to do your pattern practice, that's okay. You can go ahead and do that today. But I want to show you how to move on from your pattern practice onto your pumpkin. So any of your favorite patterns, you want to now transfer them onto your pumpkin. One thing I would like you to do is have at least one spot where you do the dots, just like Kusama did. So I'm going to do my dots right over here. And remember, we were talking about how to do the dots. You want to make them actual circles, not getting sloppy and messy. And we want to have variety in these dots. Variety means different sizes. So I am going to create these big ones down the middle, and then I am going to add my smaller ones going down. Now, when we were working on our pattern practice, you were instructed to just grid out your paper and work in these rectangles. When you start to move onto your pumpkin, you're going to have to decide how you want to curve your patterns, or maybe you don't want to curve your patterns. So I'm kind of curving my dots to follow along with the edge of my pumpkin. If you want to do something like that, that's fine. That's Yayoi style. Now, when I have these medium-sized dots, I'm also going to add the smaller dots on the edge. Then when you're all done, pretend I'm all done, you would be coloring these in very carefully with a black crayon, marker, or a colored pencil. I prefer Sharpie. If you have a Sharpie, that's excellent. If you don't worry about it. And if you want to use an Expo marker, you might want to just double check that you have permission to do that, because I know that Expo markers need to be used for like the whiteboard. So I would just double check, make sure you have enough at home. Let's talk about how I did these little hash marks here. So I'm going to do that on this side. So as I'm working on my pumpkin, again, it's a little different than those rectangles that we practiced in. So I'm going to find a place to start. And these were the place where I did 3 lines. And as I start to bump into this other shape, I'm going to carefully fill it in there. And then I do the opposite on this side. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and I'm starting to bump in there. So as you start to fill in on the pumpkin, it might feel a little bit different than your practice. I'm going to take a look at these little curves that I did. You can really see that I followed the edge of my pumpkin. So I'm going to do that over here. That was really fun. As I started to make these curves, I actually kind of turned my paper. So I'm going to turn my paper as I work. And that can help you really create a fun curve. I'm going to curve it back this way. I'm going all the way down. So your job right now is to take your practice patterns, start filling them in on your pumpkin, keeping in mind of the curves and when you bump into the other shapes. And I also want you to take notice of how I did the stem. The stem is totally up to you. In this one, I did more patterns, and I did some lines and some dots on this one. Kind of made it look like a little wooden stump, like it was cut. You could do something like that. In this one here, I did a little bit more like Yayoi's style, where instead of coloring in the shapes dark, I colored in the background dark and left the shapes white. So start thinking about how you'd like to create your stem. So for this step of the project, we are adding the shapes and the patterns onto our pumpkin. And as always, enjoy and stay creative.